Hi, Glenn.
Hello.
I would like to talk to you about the origin of your psychic gifts. Can you help us understand how you came about having these gifts and just how that has evolved for you?
Well, truthfully, it was a long drawn out process,
Hmm.
mainly for the reason that I didn't accept it. In fact, I was sort of led in another direction. I was led to believe that for some reason it was wrong, and that if I let anyone know that this was happening to me, or I was hearing voices or seeing spirits, that I was crazy. So nobody at 4 years old wants to be crazy.
Is
Uh,
that when you started to experience your gifts at
yeah, well,
4?
probably a little before that, but yeah, 4 is when I remember most distinctly.
Okay.
Um, we were moving to a new house, and this house actually had an attic, and we had never had a house with an attic. We always had bungalows, and um, my mother explained it to me that this house is special because it has an attic, and that was someplace you can go and play and be all by yourself and be who you want to be. So, of course, the very first day we moved in, I made a beeline up to the attic. And when I walked in to the room, first of all, it felt different than every other room in the house. It felt, um, I guess I would say heavy, but not heavy where it's pushing down, and just different. The atmosphere was different. And when I got in, the door closed itself. And not just sort of swung shut, it actually closed. The locking mechanism clicked in. And that takes some type of a pressure in an old house. Um, After that, I sort of was sort of shocked. I sort of froze where I was in the middle of the room, and then I started looking around, and I saw an old man standing in the corner, and he looked so sad. He looked so sad that I actually felt like I was going to cry. That's how sad he felt. Now, I'll get to this later on, but there's something to this, and I didn't know it at the time, of course. So, seeing this man in the corner that I didn't know, and he was about as old as my grandfather would be at the time, I ran downstairs. I don't think I touched the stair on the way down. I think I just slid down. I was so terrified. And I told my mother that there was a strange man in the attic. Well, of course, she poo-pooed it. No, no, Glenn, stop it. And I was so adamant that she had to come up and check. And of course, when she got there, there was no man in the attic. And not only did I feel crazy, my mother was a little bit peeved at me because they were unpacking and they had a lot to do. And, well, I didn't see him again, but I heard him. At night, my bedroom was at the end of the hallway, and where the attic came down, the stairs came down, it emptied right in front of my bedroom door. So at night, I would hear footsteps walking around upstairs. I would hear the door of the attic open because it squeaked. I would hear the footsteps coming down the stairway, and they would stop right where my door was, and then they would start to knock. I first told my mother about it. She said I was dreaming. One day when I was listening to the knocking, it was always around 2:30, 3 o'clock. My brother woke up. I shared a room with my brother. And he was going to my mother's room and said, "Do you want to come to mom's room?" I said, "No, but don't go out there. There's someone on the other side of the door. Can't you hear them knocking?" He didn't hear a thing. He opened the door, knocking stopped. There's nobody there. Closed the door. I heard him go down to my mother's. I heard her talking to him. I couldn't really make out what they were saying. He must have crawled in. The house got quiet, and sure enough, footsteps came, knocking started. Uh,
Do you feel the spirit knew that you could sense him?
I do.
Okay.
And the reason why that is I'll explain this later as I go along. But at first I thought I was going kind of crazy and that I was dreaming. But I recalled very clearly that my brother was awake. I had to be awake to talk to him.
Right.
And hence I believe that there was something at or on the other side of the door. And I really felt that if I opened the door, I would disappear forever. That's not really the case as I know it now, but my guides explained to me who that was. And it was an interesting story.
Your guides explained to you in the present time
Yeah.
and took you back there?
Now, what happened
We're
was,
kind of jumping ahead, but
yeah, so we're really skipping ahead here
Yeah.
for a bit. But when I was older, I joined the police force, and I made it my purpose to find out what happened in that house. And I later found out that that man that I saw had lost his wife of 60 years or something like that. She died of cancer. And shortly after he or she died, he committed suicide in that attic room. And the reason the attic was so significant was because he would go up to the attic and watch the children play in front of his house. I mean, he was a very nice man. And it got to the point where the pain of losing his wife was just too great. And he ended up taking his own life, which is sad in itself. But at least I know who and what that was.
So let's go back to that time. And after that age of 4 or 5 years old, what was the next sort of evolution in your perception of that spirits in other realms? And
I constantly saw spirits. I constantly saw people coming into my room at night and standing at the foot of my bed. And what I noticed mostly about those spirits is they all look sad. They all look very confused. So one night, one in particular night, this spirit really scared me. She was a lady about my mother's age. She was wearing a white gown. She was very white, like her complexion was almost paper white. And she just stood at the end of my bed and she sort of reached out, like she was reaching out to take my hands. The next morning, I asked my mother why she had scared me so much. And she said, well, what do you mean? I said, when you came in and stood at the end of my bed. She said then, oh, I just came in to check on you. It was years later, when I was a young man, that we discussed this again, and she told me she was never in my room that night. So this continued to happen throughout my lifetime, where spirits would come to me at night, and they'd always seem to stand at the foot of my bed. They wouldn't say anything. They would just look at me. And in the way they looked, I thought, you need to tell me something, but they never did. And then came my grandfather, and I was really close to my grandfather. I loved him greatly, or dearly, I guess you could say. And he was in the hospital, he was sick. And one night before going to bed, I went to my mother and I said, just to let you know, Grandpa's going to die tonight. Whoa. Well, she called me a nasty little boy, and how could I say such horrible things, and to go straight to my room, and like, why would you say that? And I told her, well, because that's what he told me. He came to me and told me that he was going to cross over and not to be afraid of that there was nothing to be afraid of. So I was sort of banished to my room that night, and it was at 3:30, and I know this because I'll let you go. No, I know this because I had a little Butch Cassidy alarm clock on my side of the bed, and I remember waking up to the ringing of the phone, and I looked at the clock, and it was 3:30. And I heard my mother say, okay, we will be there as soon as we can. Well, then she came into my room and she said, "Are you awake?" And I said, "Yes, I am." And she said, "How did you know?" And the phone call was to tell her that my grandfather had just passed away. And I told her the same thing as I told her earlier that night. He came and he told me that he was going to cross over and not to worry. It was nothing to be afraid of. Well, about 6 months after that, my grandfather came and visited me. It was again around, well, I know what time, it was 3:15 because again, my little trusty clock. I woke up and he was sitting on the edge of my bed and he just had this really nice smile. And I said, "Grandpa, what are you doing here?" And he just smiled and reached out and he touched my leg. And then that was it. He was gone. In the morning when I got up, my mother looked extremely tired. And I commented that you look very tired. Like, are you okay? And she said, "Yeah, I had a really rough night last night." And I said, "How so?" And she said, "Well, I just did." I said, "Yeah, I did too. Grandpa came to visit me last night." And well, she was holding a coffee cup and she actually dropped it.
Mm.
And I
And how
thought,
old were you at this time?
I was 11.
Oh,
And she asked me what time it was. And I told her. And she said, "My dad came to visit me last night at exactly that same time."
so your mother had gifts as well.
Oh, she did. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's why she told me to hide hers.
To hide yours.
Yeah.
Right.
Throughout my life, she always told me, "Don't tell anybody you do this. Don't tell anybody you see this. Don't tell anybody you feel this," because she said they're going to think you're crazy. So that day we had a long talk about what the heck was going on with me, and then she told me about some of the gifts she had. But after that, spirits came to me constantly, over and over and over again.
And then through your young adulthood, as you proceeded to navigate life, was this a constant part of your life, or did you push it down and then get on?
I tried to push it away
Yeah.
because of what my mother told me, and to tell you the truth, I just wasn't certain about what it was.
Yeah.
You know, I was brought up in a Catholic household, and our version of God was entirely different from the version that I was being told existed. And God was a vengeful God. He was a mean God. He was a God that extracted vengeance if you swayed. And I later found out in my teachings from my guides that nothing could be further from the truth.
Right. Right. So once you were out working, and maybe you can talk about the next most impactful experience that you had, and the near-death experience that you had on the job that really kickstarted your psychic gifts.
Well, that came when I was 26 years old.
Okay.
It was Halloween night, 12:54 a.m.
Precisely.
Yeah, I was on the police force. I had come into work, and there was a ironclad agreement in our contract, our working agreement, that no police officer was to work by himself in a marked police car after 8 o'clock at night. But when I got in, somebody had phoned in sick, and my sergeant told me that I was in a marked police car. I was in uniform, and I was to go patrol myself. But what he said to me was, "Don't get involved." My question to him was, how am I not going to get involved when I'm in a very yellow police car? Because our cars back then were yellow, and I was in uniform. So I figured, how am I possibly going to stay out of trouble, in this car? But lo and behold, I did what I was told. You never question an order. If you question an order, you could be brought up on charges for disobeying a direct order or insubordination. So I did what I was told to do. And during that patrol, I came across a situation that was not good. I could tell that from the very beginning when I saw it. I radioed in to my dispatcher and I told her that I was getting out of my car to investigate 2 individuals and to please send me a backup. Well, the ironclad rule was you do not get out of your car until your backup arrives. Now, um, an officer came on the air and said, I'm right around the corner. I'm seconds away. So I got out of my car and I approached the two people and I said, hi guys, what's up? What are you doing here? And the next thing I know, I was in a fight for my life. And during that fight, I was shot in the stomach. And basically the bullet passed right through me. And next thing I know, I'm crawling toward my police car, trying to radio for help because I knew that I was in serious trouble. I got to my car, I radioed into the dispatcher, and as far as I can remember, I said, I need help, I've been shot. Well, then at that point, all hell breaks loose. Sirens go, horns go, everyone's coming to my one location. As it was, the officer that thought he was near me heard the street wrong, and he wasn't seconds away; he was minutes and minutes away. Anyway, I got to my car, I radioed for help, and then in all of the confusion that was going on, I actually fell out of my car again. And when I fell out, I realized that my gun had fallen out beside me. So my first instinct was to hide my gun. So I tucked my gun underneath my back, thinking if they come back, they're not going to kill me with my own gun. I'm just not going to let that happen. So I hid it underneath my back. And then strange things happened. My wife at the time was pregnant with with our first baby. She was 3 months pregnant. And the first thing I thought was, I'm never going to see my son. I knew 100% he was a boy, and I knew his name. I even knew the name we were going to give him, and we had never discussed this. And after that, I was laying on the ground looking up at a streetlight thinking, I'm dying. You know, this is what it feels like to die. And it was like someone placed a umbrella or a shield over my body like this, a dome over my body. And it was raining at the time. I did not feel any more rain. I didn't feel the wind. I didn't feel the cold. It was Halloween night, so it was kind of chilly. I didn't, the wind that was blowing, that was swaying the branches, stopped. Everything went totally silent, and it was like the world stopped. It was like the world no longer spun. And then I heard this voice, not from around me, it was like it was from everywhere. It was from the trees, it was from the ground, it was from my body, it was from everything. And the voice said, everything is going to be okay. And then I found myself going in and out of consciousness. I then thought, well, this is it. I'm dying. And I actually said, thank you. It's been a good life. And when they say that your life passes in front of you, it's absolutely true in my case. In a millisecond, everything that was good, everything that was bad passed in front of me in a split, that fast. And then I don't remember anything until I was going down this long, tubular thoroughfare almost. And at the end, there was a little tiny pinprick of light. And the closer I got to that pinprick, the larger it got, until it was a brilliant, shining orb right in front of me. And out of that orb stepped my grandmother. And she held up her hand and said, you can't come here. And I said, well, why? And she said, you have things still you have to do. You need to go back. And I remember thinking or saying to her, but I don't want to go back. And she said, but you have to. You need to go back. And then the next thing I recall, was a officer had my head in her lap, and she was brushing mud from my face, and she was crying. She was weeping. And I said to her, why are you crying? I'm shot. And she jumped a mile and she said, but you're dead. And I said, nah, not likely. And she said, no, you're dead. So after that, the rush to the hospital, operation occurs. And the next day, the doctor comes in to my room and he said, do you remember me? And I said, no, I do not. And he said, I'm the surgeon that operated on you. And I said, oh, well, thank you very much. And he said, I need to ask you a question. I said, yes. And he said, what did you see that night? And my question to him was, what makes you think I saw anything? And he said, you did. Now I need you to tell me. And I said, I don't know what you're talking about. He said, well, let me put it this way. You lost 3.5 liters of blood. Your body only has 7. You should be dead. You should never have made it from that spot in that roadway to the emergency department in this hospital. You were dead. And I said, then explain why I'm here. And he said, well, this is what I'm asking you. What did you see? And I said, I will ask you the same question. What makes you think I saw anything? And he said, I saw the report. I've talked to the officer. When that officer got on scene, you were dead. You had no vitals. You should be dead. And he said, there's no doubt in my mind that you saw something. And then he explained to me that he was doing a paper, thesis or whatever it was on near-death experiences. But he was doing it with children because he said children are closer to the reincarnate stage than anybody. And they still remember what happens on the other side. So I explained to him that I was in a job that didn't accept fools lightly, that if you even showed the slightest bit of weirdness, you didn't have a job. So I explained to him again that, and he said, well, I tell you what, I won't tell anybody if you tell me what happened. So I told him. And he said, yes, that's what I'm getting from the children. That makes perfect sense. And that was the end of it. That's the last I heard of it. But it was after that day that my psychic gifts blossomed. They exploded out of me like a gunshot, a bad analogy, of course. But they exploded out of me like I could not stop them from coming. I couldn't turn them off anymore. I couldn't pretend they weren't there. They were there.
Okay, so if we can fast forward a little bit to the present time, in the last number of years, what is it that you feel is your mission or your goal with your psychic gifts? What are you looking to do with these gifts that you have?
Well, I'll tell you the truth. I'm not sure. I know I want to help people. What I've been told by my guides that my job, my purpose in life, my soul's purpose is to educate people to the after effects or the afterlife that you experience after death. There's nothing to be afraid of. That people fear death because they feel the unknown. This is not something to fear. This is a very natural transition that your soul takes, and it travels through this realm, and it goes to the other realm. Now, I told you I explained something earlier, and what I was told by my guides, that those souls that kept on coming to me at night were souls that had not crossed over yet, souls that were unsure on how to cross over. And that's what they were coming to me for. Even though I had no idea what was happening, my spirit guides told me that when you are a light worker or when you have that job to do, souls from other countries, souls that have died, or people that have died, the souls are there, and they've lost their way, can see the light, and they come to the light, and then that's my job to help them cross over.
I see.
And
So that's one of your purposes,
that's
is
one
to
of my
cross souls
purposes,
over
yeah.
that are not able to get to the other side.
Yeah, and I've done that many times.
Right. Okay. And then what are the other areas that you delve into, like with your gifts?
I do channeling. I allow, or I don't allow anything. They allow me to hear them.
Okay.
And to interpret their messages through their loved ones.
Okay.
I can go into the Akashic records. So can everybody else.
Mhm.
But for some reason, I can get in very easily, and I can interpret the Akashic records. My job, the way I see it, is to help as many people as I can not fear what's coming to them. It's a natural process, and it's actually a wonderful process.
And in terms of souls and people learning lessons in this lifetime, is there a role that you can play using your gifts to help them understand their lessons?
Yeah, I think I can.
Okay.
There are people that are caught in this vortex
Mhm.
of, I don't know what to do. I don't know why I'm here. I can't understand why I keep on doing this over and over and over again. I don't understand why I feel the way I do. I don't understand why I hate that person and I don't even know them. That brings in the Akashic records and the past life experiences and the past lives that they have lived. So what I can do is I can go in, and with the help of my guides and the lords of the Akashic records, I can actually see their past life, and I can explain to them what has taken place and why they are having this problem, if they have an ancestral bind there, or if they have an energy cord attached to them.
Okay, super helpful for people, I would imagine.
Yeah.
So that's working with individual people. Do you also, you mentioned your guides and getting messages.
Mhm.
Do you also feel like you're getting generalized messages on themes that anybody could benefit from?
Yes.
Okay.
Let me first explain that anybody can do what I do. Anybody has the ability to tap into their vibrational um, gift and see their Akashic records, or see what's waiting for them or what they've done. It just takes practice, and it takes belief. I think belief is bar none most important.
Right.
But yes, I can help people understand why they're stuck in that loop. And a lot of times, what I've been able to do is, when I go in and I show them or I speak to them, I tell them about this life that they've lived. Most of the times, they'll come back and say, "Oh, that makes so much sense." And that allows them to free up that. It's almost like a record that's stuck. Okay, keeps on, going over and over again. Once we get past that little skip, then the record goes on and everything is smooth,
Okay.
and they're allowed to live out their life without fear.
Okay. Okay. And then the general messages for people are also helpful from you. Like your guides have been very forthcoming with certain common messages that people need to hear.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's another area that
Love,
yeah.
love, understanding, and acceptance.
Mm.
They've told me many times that we as human beings have got it all wrong. That
It's no surprise.
we keep on saying and interpreting mankind as a race. The race is a black race or a Chinese race or a Canadian, like a white race. That nothing could be further from the truth. It's not a race. We're all human. We're all mankind. It's the ethnicity that they are talking about. I think it's man's greatest myth
Mm.
that they've got it wrong. If they realize that we are all of the same source,
Right.
we are all working with the same DNA, things would be different.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
this takes education, it takes
Sure.
people understanding, and it takes them letting go of some very strict beliefs that have been indoctrinated into their lives.
Yeah. Yes. So, would you say that your guides are a daily part of your life at this point in your
My
life?
guides are wonderful.
Yeah.
My guides are amazing. Yeah, I talk to them every day.
Yeah. Well, this has been a pleasure, and I'm really thankful for you sharing your story, Glenn, how things have developed for you, and we look forward to tapping in much more to your guides and to the wisdom of the other realms, and hoping that this is going to be a very beneficial relationship for
Well,
anyone who hears this.
right now, my guys are telling me we are at the tip of, that iceberg where they say
Yeah, yeah.
90% is below and 10% is above. They're telling me now we're not even there.
Right.
We're simply on the snowflake
Yeah,
that landed on the tip of the iceberg.
right.
There's so much to go.
Yeah,
But so much wonderful knowledge to share.
Yeah.
And I look forward to that.
Yeah.
I look forward to sharing this and to helping people understand.
wonderful. Thank you so much, Glenn.
My pleasure.